What's up, YouTube? FFXIV here, and my goodness, has it been a crazy 2 months in Final Fantasy XIV. Not only have we had WoW players trying the game out, we have had WoW players liking the game, and honestly, WoW players being converted into the Final Fantasy XIV family. And today, we're going to talk about some really big examples of this. I hope you guys enjoy it. What's up, YouTube? FFXIV here, and today I wanted to talk about all the WoW players who've come over to 14 and just how it's been even better than I think any of us could have imagined it. So, I mean, let's just take a look. I think everybody expected for people to come and try the game. I don't think we expected the amount of people to actually really like the game, and not to the level that they have. I mean, I expected most people for Asmon to try the game, shit on the game, and quit. And props to the man. He's doing a great job. I'm enjoying his streams. And he's doing it right. I gotta say, dude, it really frustrates me to see him being pushed to do things at other people's speeds. I am so glad he's doing it at his own speed. I just wish his chat would shut the hell up. The man's doing great. But let's talk. I want to talk about the other streams, and I want to talk about the one thing we didn't expect, and I think that is the conversion of these streamers from WoW streamers and their WoW personalities to Final Fantasy XIV streamers and their Final Fantasy XIV personalities. What I mean by that is, let's take a look at Rich. We saw a video of Rich not too long ago. He posted it. He was kind of reacting to it, where it's him playing WoW, and he is just raging. Like he's so angry. His face is red. He doesn't look like he's having fun. And you watch him now in 14, and the guy is he's always smiling. He always seems happy. And I think on top of that, I think the community has given him a support that I don't think most people realize are in a game. And if you haven't played Final Fantasy XIV, there are problems in the game. It's not perfect. But I'm going to tell you that it has a very good support system, and you're going to create a support system that is honestly going to probably last you for years. I won't say generations. And not even through games. I mean, like, you guys might end up, when Final Fantasy XIV eventually goes off servers, you'll probably jump together to another game because of just how support the system is. If you've never played WoW, would you want to know how supportive the system is? Look up the Japanese show. It's on Netflix called Dad of Light. It is absolutely amazing, and it's based off a blog that somebody wrote about their own experiences with the game and their dad, and they are actually the person in the show. Now, what you see with the community of the supportness, that is the Final Fantasy XIV community. And I will say one thing that I don't think people realized playing Final Fantasy XIV, but most of us who play Final Fantasy XIV are actually, as crazy as it might sound, learning how to act more Japanese. You see, American culture is all about, as an American I know this, how do I get myself ahead? How do I get ahead of everyone else? Look at every single business, look at the news, look at just yourself and your behavior. Now, it doesn't mean that you're technically trying to be the worst person or that you're technically attacking people, but there is very little concern of how do we move forward and more of how do I get ahead. And a big part, this is what makes America so competitive. Part of this is really good. I mean, we do have some benefits from it, but there are a lot of negatives of it. And I think people playing Final Fantasy XIV are finally experiencing what Japanese culture is like. Now, I've lived in Japan for 7 years now, and I can tell you that when I play Final Fantasy XIV, that is the Japanese culture. Some of it's not good, some of it's bad. The aspect of not vocalizing everything when somebody annoys you and not being vocal about it, That is Japanese culture 100%. So if any of you are ever looking to come to Japan, Final Fantasy XIV is great training on how to live here. 100%. It's 100% great training on how you act when you live in this country. But back to this, let's get back to those WoW streamers. Everyone knows about the whole Quinn69 situation where he's the only WoW streamer who came in, story skipped, boosted, got carried, and then talked about how shitty the game was and how bad the story was. What's so funny is when that happened, you had people like Asmon and Rich pretty much, hey, he's a good guy. I don't want to get into this drama, blah, 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 blah. Now, Asmon still pretty much stayed on that stance, which I expect he will until he gets to a big part of the story, in which, honestly, once the story grabs him, he might flip as well. But one thing I've noticed is that both Rich and Summit have flipped. They went from their original stance of, you know, hey, the guy doesn't have to like the game, to actually understanding, I think, why it infuriates us so much, and actually openly mocking him, which I think is really funny. I mean, Summit made a joke about like the "Where's the heals" comment, where Quinn was obviously playing like WoW, where he thinks his only job is a DPS, and literally stands in crap. And you had Rich, who made several comments on how the story is so good, and pretty much have both given him a hard time about the whole having to read the story. And this is what I mean. These people who were originally, honestly, very anti-Final Fantasy and pro-WoW have now become staunch defenders of Final Fantasy XIV. WoW players are starting to be converted into the game. Now, Final Fantasy XIV might not have been the official part that killed WoW, but I do think Final Fantasy XIV will be what kills WoW. WoW is going to be what injures WoW, but Final Fantasy XIV is going to be what kills WoW, and I'm going to explain that in a second. And it's not even going to be intentional. What's going to happen is, right now, if you look at the WoW drama, people are leaving WoW. Most of them are coming to Final Fantasy XIV. Final Fantasy XIV is the closest to WoW. It's got lots of good reviews, and people who are honestly just looking for a game to relax, and they're going to try it. And we're seeing it nonstop. People leave WoW and they go back to WoW, unless they find something better. And that is how Final Fantasy XIV is going to end up killing WoW. It's going to end up killing WoW because these people who have been betrayed by WoW, who are tired of being lied to, tired of all the drama tied to it, tired of all the racism tied to it, tired of all just the bull crap tied to it, are going to be jumping to Final Fantasy XIV. They're going to see the community, they're going to experience something they've never experienced, and they're going to be like, wow, for the first time, I'm excited to play this game. For the first time, I'm excited to see what comes next. I feel emotionally attached to the characters in this game. And what's going to happen is they're not going to go back to WoW. That is what's going to kill WoW. People have constantly left WoW and come back. Constantly. The problem is that when they left WoW, they didn't have anything that was very good to replace WoW. So they come back. The majority of people who go to Final Fantasy XIV don't go back to WoW. There are some, but speaking for my own friends, I have two best friends who came from WoW. My best friend that I've known since I was 17. So there'll be almost 20 years. It's about 15 years. He started in WoW. I remember trying to play WoW so I could play with him. He's the one who got me actually into MMOs, even though I could never really get into WoW because I couldn't level up high enough. And when Final Fantasy XIV came out, he tried it for a bit, went back to WoW, stayed with WoW. But then when I think it was Warlords of Draenor, he got tired. It was boring. Went to Final Fantasy XIV. He's never gone back. He's been in 14 since, I believe, around the beginning of Heaven's Ward. And he's never gone back. And I think one thing I understand is that for the first time he feels he can play a game and just relax. He doesn't have to be competitive. He doesn't have to try and worry about this or that. He can just relax and enjoy the game and have a good time. My other friend, she's a big raid. She loves competitiveness. She's in. She actually replaced me in the raid because I couldn't raid anymore. She still plays WoW, but her main game is 14 when it comes to MMOs. And it's the one that she spends more money on. And I don't know how long she'll stay in WoW, but the fact is that slowly over time, Final Fantasy XIV has replaced WoW for her. And this is what happens to a lot of other players who don't just quit WoW altogether, is 14 eventually replaces WoW. You think you can play both games, but the reality of it is you can't. There's too much time required. And so eventually what happens is they log into WoW, they start to get bored. And then they get into Final Fantasy XIV more, and then they become staunch defenders of the game. They become the people to go out and say, this is not a weeb game. This person did not beat the story. You can tell the difference between a WoW player who has become a Final Fantasy XIV player and a Final Fantasy XIV fanboy by the fact that the Final Fantasy XIV players that were once in WoW, they have something to compare to. So they're going to compare. They're going to be able to give a very good understanding and explanation of why this is good. Versus the fanboys who are just going to scream and throw a tantrum. But I'm just so blown away. I mean, look at OTK, man. Like, 3 members of OTK, 3 of the big prominent members of OTK have switched to WoW. I want to see Miskiff here, man. I hope Miskiff joins in. I hope that... I would love to see all of OTK jump into WoW. Jump into 14. I want to see Preach jump into 14. I think he would honestly enjoy the game more than he thinks he would. And 14 can use it. I just hope 14 handles things better than WoW did when it comes to servers. Because WoW servers, man, they had a lot. And I remember trying to log into Warlords of Draenor, and it was horrible. I enjoyed WoW. It was a lot of fun when I started playing on my Death Knight. But they've gutted the game. And I think that when those players come to 14, they're going to have that comparison. And I think, the 14 players are like, oh, this is so bad, oh, that's so bad, oh, you're not going to make this, oh, this is so boring, oh, this is so hard. And they really have no comparison of what to go against, what is hard and what isn't hard. There are certain aspects of WoW players that if a WoW player comes over thinking they can play the game like a WoW player, they're going to fall flat pretty quickly. Quinn69, good example. But the majority of them are going to come over knowing it's a different game and knowing it's a new game, have their knowledge that they have from WoW, but realize that it's not always going to mean anything. And I think we're seeing that in Asmon. We are slowly seeing Asmon convert. When he first saw the trailer, the Cat Girls, when he first saw Ishtola, he was just like, ugh. But look at him now. I think the funniest thing about Asmon is that he literally is defending his change, which is fine. I mean, I literally find it funny because he was so against it, and now he's literally just like defending it. And to be fair, he never said it was furry, but it is pretty funny actually. But if you're a 14 player and you're worried about the WoW players, I think, guys, we've had enough time. We can see they are going to be, I think, our biggest defenders of this game. And they're going to be the people that have a valid opinion because they have a comparison. So I personally am looking forward to more WoW players coming in, giving the game a shot. Please don't come to Aether. Please go to something else. Not because we don't want you here, but because, man, we are filling up. We're going to need... We got to spread you around a bit. But with that said, guys, this is Siegfried Lane signing out. I hope you're all having a great time in Final Fantasy. I'm going to be in there a little bit later to stream. I'll catch you all later. Peace.